Hello YouTube, it's a new day and a new video. Today, it's a beautiful day. Plus 22 Celsius here in southern Manitoba. Just beautiful. Need to wash my trusty rusty. But today, we get to start back on an old project. Now if you've been following along on my channel, you're gonna remember this engine. So this guy, I am waiting on the last piece, which is the wear plate for that oil pump. Check the video on this DT466E for the information on that, but I gotta wait about a week to get that plate made. It's a long story, I'll explain it in that video. Go check out that one there. But for today, we have got a special package sitting on the floor here. Can anybody guess what that engine is? Yeah, finally got the motor back for the big Steiger. So, before I get into this too far, let me just tear this pallet apart so we can get a good look at what's actually going on here. Get a look and see where we wound up with this motor and how nicely they fixed those damaged counterbores. You remember that from the part 1 video? They said there were multiple lower counterbores that had to get fixed and then that number 3 upper counterbore, but this engine is clean, guys. Just wait till I get the wrapper off, but I have never sent an engine to a machine shop that came back this clean. So, honestly guys, I'm thinking about switching machine shops here. This is pretty impressive. I know you can't tell too good in the pictures yet, but let me get this apart and we'll talk about that some more. This is like, this form of paint strippery and cleanliness I usually only see on other people's YouTube channels in the real high-end rebuild shops. So, I'm kind of excited about this. Jeans and a t-shirt today. I got the door open today because it's such a beautiful day, but that does really mess with my lighting in here. And I do my filming with a GoPro, and GoPros are really not the best low light cameras. That I have learned. I think I probably would choose something different next time. I am excited to get into this because, like I say, I've used several different machine shops. I have never had an engine come back this clean. I already talked to the customer and asked him what color he wanted me to paint it because this is definitely getting painted. Okay, I gotta find a block of wood to set this on and lean it up against there so it don't fall over. This piece of plywood should do it. I'll put that there. For those non-engine gurus out there, this is the camshaft and it weighs about as much as I do. Better not do it that way, I'm gonna have to go this way. Oh, I see, this is bound up there too. I don't know what's going on here. I'm lost. They did a nice job of packaging this up. Now I gotta get rid of all these bands. Excuse me. Oh, that one's doubled. I gotta do this side. I don't milk cows anymore, as my hands aren't strong enough to do a double one like that. I almost got through there though. Oh, I was close to the end of it. Another inch down and I would have missed it. Oh well, whatever. Go ahead and laugh at me. I can't hear you anyway. Wow, somebody just went to town on this thing. Whoever strapped this thing down, that guy needs a raise. He could probably come work for me. I'd be okay with that. Looks like he does good work. Okay. There's like 42 miles of straps on this thing. All right. That must be old parts in there. There, got that all off. Wow. Okay, let's have a look at this stuff. It's fine. There's more room over there anyway. Okay, so that's all our old cam bearings. I don't know how they got these out without destroying them. I always destroy those when I move them. But I also don't have the proper tool. These things are really wore. You know what, give me a minute here. Let me get these cleaned up a bit and then I want to show these bearings to you because show you why I'm replacing these. Okay, I'll show you out here because I got better lighting, but if you look inside at those bearings, they actually look pretty good. And when I say pretty good, what I mean is we don't have any copper showing or brass or whatever. We don't have any oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Scratches through there, those deep scratches and ridges. We don't have any of that. These are basically smooth bearings. Like when you look at that side, we could pretty much run them again. This is an example of a bearing. There's a main bearing out of there, and that's an example of one that's completely shot. You can see the heavy wear here. You can see the deep grooves right down to the brass in there. All these scratches, that bearing is totally shot. This one may have not been too far away from spinning in the block. And you can see all these dots everywhere. All those dots is debris that has come through the oiling system and it's gotten squashed and embedded into that bearing babbitt as this is running. You don't want that in there either. So these cam bearings look pretty good. There's like maybe a little bit of stuff in there, but they're actually quite good. But here's the thing. A camshaft sits in that journal right across here, and you have all these tappet covers that your lifters sit on. The valves and the injectors run off of that camshaft, and that puts a lot of pressure, a lot of downward pressure in that camshaft. Now if we just rip a hole in here quick, you can see right there we have an oil hole. Okay, now let's look at our bearings. We have these oil holes here as well, but the way these were sitting in the block would be exactly this way. We're looking at the top side. Let's have a look at the bottom sides. There, you see that? Every one of these is wore pretty substantially right down to the copper. That layer of babbitt is just gone. So these bearings are toast. It's time to replace them. And that's from having all that pressure on the camshaft. When you turn up the pump on these engines to make more power, if you don't do everything just right, and I'll have to explain that in another video what that means, but if you don't do everything just right, you put a lot of extra load on that camshaft and it forces it into the bottom of those cam bearings, and before you know it, you wipe those out, you wreck a cam, all that kind of stuff. So this, I think, is just wear over time, although this engine doesn't have that many hours on it, but still, I think this would be considered normal wear on this motor, and so we obviously had new cam bearings put in. And that is evidenced by right there. You can see that's a brand new cam bearing in there. So, and they did a nice job of lining up the oil hole. Actually, these ones might have a groove all the way around there. I can't remember. I never get to see them with the cam bearings out because I let the machine shops do that part, because I don't have that tool that stretches through here to put those things in. And I don't feel like buying it. I should actually make a correction. These bearings do all have surface fatigue in them, where they've got little bits of the lining that's been pulled off of there. Usually that's from like a heavy pulsating load or just like a lot of load on those bearing surfaces. So I mean, I said they were in great shape. What I was getting at, all I meant is just that they're not all tore up like the main bearings and the rod bearings are in this motor. That was just all I was getting at there. These bearings would need to be replaced anyway. Anyway, what else do we got here on this fine Christmas spring day? This must be my liner that I sent them. Yeah. Boy, that box is beat up, eh? Whew. So this engine went to the machine shop that I usually use, and they were not able to repair that counterbore, so they sent it to a different machine shop that I haven't used in the past because they tend to be very expensive. But I'm seeing this block and I'm thinking, might be worth paying that extra price this time. Okay, let's get that off of there. Well, they definitely surfaced this thing. Looks really good. Oh yeah. My customer is probably not going to get to see this except for in this video. But regardless, if I was him, I would be very pleased to have a block that's machined that nice. Which is the way it should be when you send the stuff to machine shop anyway. Wowzers. Check it out. I'm telling you, I don't know how many engines I've rebuilt. Those are the ones that I did last year. And then of course that head gasket isn't on the wall yet. But I have never gotten one this back. I'm just excited. I have never gotten one back that was this clean. Like, there's no paint left on this thing anywhere. It's just totally cleaned up. And I'm always so diligent about going through all the oil holes and blowing solvent or brake clean or something through everything and brushing them as much as I can because I never get them back this clean. But look at this. Well, you need more light. Look at that in there. It's gorgeous. And it's all oiled up so it can't rust. Wow. they've honed those bottom bores. Well, I mean, they likely machined. Oh, I wonder if they machined them all, because they all look like brand new. Yeah, I think they did, actually. Wow! No wonder that was so expensive. They made this a brand new block. Huh. Number 3 would be this one here. You can't really tell that they put a sleeve in there. Well, you can. I can a little bit. I'll put an arrow in the video, but right there I can see the faintest outline of a bit of a sleeve. And that's what they did, is they machined this all right out, and then they put a sleeve inside there to fill it back in, and then they remachined the counterbores into that sleeve. And that sleeve, I don't know if it's welded in or if it's just pressed in or what, but that thing is sleeved in there just beautifully now. So yeah, here you can see a little bit of the evidence of that, like right there. Oh, to be honest with you, looks like they did number 2 as well. My invoice wasn't very specific. It didn't really say exactly, but yeah, this one's definitely been done too. So they sleeved these 2 cylinders, 2 and 3. Not that one, not that one, not that one. Those are original. But it looks like they did all the bottom counterbores, or the bottom counterbores, the bottom liner bores are all, they all are machined. Those are all fixed up and new. So I don't know what they thought was wrong with those. I would have put it together the way it was. I thought it was fine. But it could be, I didn't measure them, and it could be that they were out of spec that way. Or maybe they made this a press fit block now. I don't know. We're gonna find out. But I just love how clean this is. I'm just, man, I can wash this up with acetone a little bit and we can paint it, make it look beautiful. Okay, that's enough googling about that. Now the problem is we put this on the floor backwards. That's the front. And the way everything is on my shelves, that's the front. So this is gonna be confusing for me because I have a small brain. So I'm gonna have to be a bit careful. Test fitting liners and stuff isn't gonna matter that much, especially if I number them. But I'm gonna need to turn this around at some point just so it makes more sense in my brain. I basically think in pictures, so when stuff is backwards, that really messes me up. So suppose a guy named Ray dropped a liner in here as just a real quick test fit. What would that look like? Ooh, yeah. This is definitely, oh, yeah, that's definitely a tighter fit than what I'm used to on these. That liner won't even drop in there by itself. Uh-oh. Now I jammed it. That is way tighter than what it was, I'll tell you that. Whew. Okay, test fitting this could be a pain. There we go. Get it in just the right spot. Okay, well, now I know why they did all that machining to the lower bores. These are gonna be hard to get in there now once I get those O-rings on. Woo! I think I'm gonna have to drop them all in, hammer them all down, tighten them down with bolts, check my protrusion, get the puller out and pull them back out again, put the O-rings on and then drop them back in. Now technically, being that this was at the machine shop and it looks like they've done an amazing job with this, like the deck on this engine is like perfect. In theory, I should be able to just put my O-rings on there and drop these things all in place. But you know how I feel about that. I don't trust anybody. Well, before I drop those liners in, I want to make really sure that my counterbores here are all nice and clean. We've got a little bit of oil and a little bit of collected debris there. I got to wash this block up properly yet. But just for now, I want to test fit those liners. I don't want to go through too much work in case there is a screw up on here and I have to send this block back or something. I'd hate to have to spend all that time cleaning it and making everything all nice and perfect and then having to send it away again or something. So let's try and do this a step at a time. I'll drop those liners down, press them in with a block of wood, I guess, because I don't have any other way to do it. And I'll measure the protrusion, and if that checks out, then we'll go ahead and jack them back out of there and clean everything up. And start getting ready to actually assemble this guy. Okay, cylinder number 1. There we go. Get it in just the right spot and then it fits. Well, I broke that other block, so I'm going to take that sleeve puller that I had made for the 855s, put that on there. Then I'm going to take this big block and put that on there, and we'll try and push it down with the sledge. Oh, that seemed to work pretty good. Ha! Good thing I'm going to clean this, because man, am I making a mess now. I mean, it's a good thing I didn't already clean it, is what I was getting at. Probably could just whack that plate actually with a rubber mallet, right? See if that's enough to do it. Number 4. Okay, that is seated. Oh no, these I need the super long bolts for. So that is probably these ones. No, it's not even those ones. Huh, that's weird. I thought I already made a set of holder downer bolts for the 855s, but I don't see them in my drawers here. These 855s use a weird size of head bolt. We got here measures, yeah, 0.68, so that's like 11/16, right? 0.68, I think so, yeah. So 11/16, that's not a bolt you're just going to go down to your local Canadian Tire and pick up a bunch of those. So I'm going to have to get some nuts and make some hold down bolts for this one again. Ah, man, I'm too short on time for that. I may wind up just double checking that these are all pressed down really nice and firm, and then just measure it without the bolts, and if it's close, then if it's within where we want to be, then we might have to call it good. I don't like doing that, but I got to get this thing going. I hate cutting corners, but sometimes you have to rely on experience and good judgment, and that's just the truth. That's just the way it is. Nope, I don't like it. I changed my mind. I was in town this weekend, and so I picked up some nuts and washers. And I have lots of leftover 855 bolts from other projects. Those are, a bunch more underneath here. So I'm going to make my own liner hold down bolts again. So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure this off for the right length. I'm going to cut this bolt down, and then I'm going to stick that nut over top and weld it to the bolt and just make my own hold down bolts. That would be exactly what I did with these ones for the DT466 as well. Same thing. These are just nuts that are welded onto the threads, and using a washer to get enough room to hit the liner, to hold the liner down. I'm going to do that same thing again. I do enough of these 855s, it's probably best. Okay, if you've never done this before, it's very simple. Just going to take my bolt, drop it down all the way. I'm going to screw it all the way to the bottom. There, that's, oh, a little more. Okay, that's bottomed out, and I'm going to take my marker, make a mark around here. Look at that, that's not very good. Somebody gave me this Milwaukee marker. Does not work very good. Milwaukee can't even make a good marker. Anyway, going to pull the bolt back out. Now I know the length that that bolt needs to be. That's the deck when it's all the way to the bottom. So now I want to have my washer kind of sitting like there and my nut kind of like in the middle there. So now I'm going to go cut this off. I'm going to cut it probably at that line, and then if I put that line about halfway through the nut like that, that'll give me a nice bit to weld in the top, and then that washer will take up a little bit of space and I'll still have lots of thread to grab on there. So let's go cut that off. Put this thing up in the vise. There, see? That's a proper tool. Okay, so where'd it go? Come here, I need you. There's our shank of our new hold down bolt. Let's go see if that nut fits. So remember that nut was a little bit tight on the threads. So is it gonna fit over this end? Oh yeah, just nicely, perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna probably set that nut about like so. So I got some area to weld there. And then with the washer on there, that'll add enough length to make it so I can't bottom the bolt out, but I'll still have lots of thread engagement. So now I gotta make myself some kind of little jig to sit that in there so that it's the right height and keeps it kind of straight. Because I don't want the head of it, the nut, to wobble its way in when I'm screwing that down. I want it to be as flat as possible. There, I made myself a little jigometer here to get the right amount of, well, not the right amount, but I mean to get some relief in here that I can weld that up and weld it to the nut. So it's just a bunch of spacers and or a washer and a bunch of spacers. The bottom of these bolts is pretty flat, so I'm going to be relying on that to kind of hold the bolt straight. It's not going to be perfect, but I am not a real fabricator. I do my best, but it's just the way it is. I think I might put one more washer on there. How's that? Yeah, that should work. Let's go weld this up. Well, I sneaked over to the other side of the shop here, and with all this scrap metal and Milwaukee stuff, this must be the scrap table, I guess. Just gonna clean myself a little bare spot here. There's welder chunks all over all of this. There, now I should have a little bit of a flat spot to set my jig. That doesn't seem too bad. Kind of hoping it's just going to ground through the table and then just through that nut there. Looks like we got her turned up pretty hot already. See what we get here. That's going to work. Okay, I had to go get my weldering gloves and my weldering helmet. Let's see how bad I can mess this up now, eh? That looks hot. Probably should not lick that right now. So in theory, I should have, oh, that's a bent washer. I should have a really nice liner holder downer bolt now. Yep, that's all kinds of awesome. If I go there, it'll actually be even because these heads are not exactly, the cylinder liners are not all spaced the same apart. One head goes here, one head goes here, one head goes here. These two are closer together with a bigger space. These two are closer together with a bigger space on these ends, and same thing here, we got a bit of a space there, and then we're closer together there. So it is definitely cast as if it was like 3 different engines kind of stuck together, and they didn't keep that liner distance the same. But that's gonna work. So now I just need to do this 11 more times so that I have 1 hold down bolt for every liner, or sorry, 2 hold down bolts for every liner. Well, I guess I could do it like that, and then if I zigzagged them, I wouldn't need as many bolts. Might make it a little more goofy for trying to measure my liner protrusion though. How does that work? Let's find out. Probably not going to have enough room for my bridge then. Oh, it won't be exactly in the center, but it'll be pretty close, so that would still work. Okay, let's do that then. What about this way? Yeah, same thing. I can kind of go up to there, and then I'll have to just, yeah, this will work. Okay, so then what do I need? 1, 2, 3 per head, I guess, would make sense. All right, I'll check back with you when I got the rest of those made. Well, I did decide to just go ahead and make all 12 of them like I had originally planned. So I'm going to throw them on there. The idea with doing 12 was sort of so that I could space them like this, and then I should be able to take all 4 measurements without having to move any bolts. And just so that it looks nice, I'm going to move these ones too. There, now they're kind of all on there the same. I'm going to go grab my plate. I'm going to whack these all one more time just to make sure they're all seated good and proper. Guess my hammer could be a little cleaner. There, those should all be seated for sure now. Alright, I got a decent amount of pressure holding those liners in there. I'm very certain that they're seated. So now I'm going to grab my deck bridge and do the protrusion measurements and just make sure that everything is checking out the way it's supposed to be. Alright, liner protrusion. I've talked about this before in some of my other videos, but if you have a wet sleeve engine like this, liner protrusion is super important. So what is liner protrusion? That is just simply referring to how far the liner comes above the deck, or in some cases below. Some engines have a negative protrusion spec window. You can get into the negatives on some engines. I think the Detroit 60 series is like that actually. Anyway, the reason why that's important is because you can see this lip right here. Right on this bottom step, all the way around there is where your fire ring sits for your head gasket. So you have tons of compression in here, especially under heavy load. In the Power Stroke, you're probably looking at tens of thousands of PSI here, maybe even 100,000 PSI. I don't know what it is. It's a lot anyway. And those gases have to get sealed in somehow with the head sitting on top of here. And that head is not just a machine surface sitting on a machine surface and that's it. There's actually what they call a fire ring that goes around here. And that fire ring has crush, and the crush of the fire ring is what determines how well this seals here. So on a regular head gasket, this is your fire ring. It's this sort of steel insert that is in there. And that fire ring lays in that groove, and when you put the head down, it presses on that fire ring and squashes that thing down. And so you have to have that lip in the liner at the right height so you get the right amount of squish when your head is all the way torqued down. There's only a certain window of crush that you can have, and after that it won't crush any farther. So what we want to do is measure how high that lip is above the deck, and we're going to do that in 4 places. You want to have 4 different spots on each liner, and you take an average, and that's your liner protrusion. And then there's going to be a chart that gives you what your spec is, up and down, max, min, that kind of thing. And I lost my train of thought. And that spec is basically a formula that determines what that crush is going to be. So I'm going to go through and measure these out in 4 places from front to back. I always make a chart in my spreadsheet on that, and my spreadsheet figures out my averages and stuff, and then I just need to look at the spec and then I know where I'm at. So let's see where this guy sits. Oh, I was so impressed with this. I was so impressed. And now... And so begins the liner protrusion nightmare I ran into on this particular engine. Take a look at these numbers and see what you think. In fact, put a guess in the comments for me. I'd be curious to hear what you think happened here. For the record, at the time that these videos are being posted, I've already brought this to a head and figured out what the problem is. But just the same, I'll still be posting the whole process I went through to troubleshoot and discover what exactly is happening here. So please stay tuned as we dive deep into this conundrum in the next video in this series. I'll see you then, and thanks for watching.